The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Brought to you by the National Cannabis Coalition.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Oh, welcome everybody. It is Tuesday, July 24th, 2012, and it's got to be my mother's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. Mom is 65 years old today, and without her, I wouldn't be here, of course. So happy birthday, Mom. We'll call you later on tonight and find out what's happening for you. I hope you liked the mug and the t-shirt I got you from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But anyway, it's also got to be 420 somewhere in the world, especially right here in Portland, Oregon, where we just got back from our participation in a protest of President Obama's fundraising dinner at the Oregon Convention Center. I don't think it's a dinner, it's just an appearance. But anyway, he's appearing at the Oregon Convention Center today. We've got video, we've got photos, and we will also get major news coverage of National Cannabis Radio and Students for Sensible Drug Policy. We were out there today in force. I'm going to be on K2 and OPB later tonight. Anthony Johnson will be on, he was on KBOO and KXL, and I believe Bradley Steinman made it on to KPTV, the Fox affiliate out here. So we will get plenty of coverage. Already photos are popping up from the Oregonian, our state's largest newspaper, and K2 News, photos from the protest showing our signs and of course the ncr420.com URL. So we're really thrilled about that. But before we get to all of that, let's introduce everybody here in the studio. Taking the engineering duties for the day, we've got Wiz Calico.
Aloha, glad to be here.
My partner in crime there at the protest, who has changed into something more casual.
Oh man, I was sweating so bad after that. I had to go home, take a shirt, and now it's all about the one love, man.
Yes.
Just chilling.
So in the last segment of the show today, where we normally have the Radical Rant, we'll look at the photos and the videos. We'll talk a little bit about the protest because I think it did a whole lot for our movement here. Also sitting over in the co-host chair today, we've got Brian the Red, who was stellar, exemplary in your service today, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Russ. I just went out and do what I usually do, get people's attention. You know.
You always get attention. I always love that you go out in your suit and you really just, because folks are like, okay, dreadlocks, long beard, suit, does not compute.
Yes,
It freaks them out, and that gets attention.
It does kind of, spook people when they realize, hey, this hippie is hiding amongst regular people.
Who let him
happen? No.
Let's also go to our virtual studio in Grastoria, Oregon, where Cannabis Carrie Gallagher, our news director, is standing by. How you doing, Carrie?
I'm doing great today.
Oh, so
good job on that protest. I got to see some of those pictures that are coming out. Of course, I could identify you guys, and the signs look great.
Oh, thank you so much. Really quickly, what do we have for our headlines today?
Well, we've got some breaking news about a lawsuit in California. Also, I'm going to tell you about a New York man who got in trouble for selling marijuana today. He had to answer to a judge. We're also going to tell you about the efforts in Montana to legalize marijuana up there. And we're going to go down to Arizona, and I'm going to tell you about a dispensary that's suing just to get their application in.
Oh, all right. Thanks for that. We'll get to that right after this first break. Also, today's Electric Tuesday. We've got some remix music. Send Dog of Cypress Hill with a remix of a classic Bob Marley tune. So stick around for that at 20 after. after. And then at half past, very special guest joining us considering the breaking events of this past week. We've got Richard Feldman, the president of the Independent Firearm Owners of America. We're going to talk about the Second Amendment in America, how the drug war affects that, and how it affects our feeling of safety and danger here in America as well. All that plus an hour or two. We'll take your calls at 971-533-7111 in Toker Talk Radio. Stick around. We're right back after this.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420. You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show. Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. Help us legalize it. Text NCC to 420-420 and send $10 to the National Cannabis Coalition. Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, ganja sacrament, consumer cannabis. The topic of marijuana is heating up the news, and the Russ Belville Show catches you up with today's latest headlines. Now, here's our senior news editor, Cannabis Carey, with the Daily Cannabis Chronicle.
We're going to start off with some breaking news today. Federal judges in all 4 California districts have dismissed the lawsuits asking them to allow medical marijuana dispensaries. According to the U.S. Department of Justice today, they were only reinforcing federal drug laws that say marijuana is illegal and make no distinction for medical uses. Medical marijuana proponents were trying to stop the federal government from prosecuting dispensary owners and operators who are acting in accordance with state laws. The Sacramento nonprofit collective El Camino Wellness Center, along with dispensary operator Ryan Landers, had sued for being forced to shut their doors of their businesses after following all state laws concerning medical marijuana and state business laws. The El Camino Wellness Center had been considered a model in the industry of transparency and well-run regulation in Sacramento before being raided and shuttered in February of this year.
Well, you know, this is to be expected when you're filing in federal district court. Anytime you're talking about the feds, they don't believe there is such a thing as medical marijuana. In fact, we're going to go to this clip now from the Supreme Court. This is part of the Supreme Court's reasoning on why the federal government cannot recognize medical marijuana.
Drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. If you do them, you're bad because drugs are bad, okay?
And the battle to open dispensaries in the medical marijuana state of Arizona has been going on for a few years now. It was only in May that they finally began accepting applications for legal, regulated dispensaries to operate in their state. The White Mountain Health Center had been diligently doing all of the footwork required to open a medical marijuana dispensary in Sun City, Arizona. But local politics were playing a dirty trick on the would-be dispensary. A state DHS rule requires the dispensary applications to be turned in with the county zoning information. Sun City, that is based in Maricopa County, has a staunch medical marijuana opponent for their county attorney, Bill Montgomery. Montgomery convinced the 5-member Board of Supervisors in Maricopa County to refuse to set any zoning regulations for dispensaries and therefore ignoring multiple requests for the White Mountain Health Center for that information. The county refused to inspect any potential dispensary sites or provide any documentation that even acknowledged the dispensary even made a request. So with the clicking and no zoning information to complete their otherwise completed dispensary application, the owners of the White Mountain Health Center sued the county for the zoning information. Today, a county judge just went ahead and put a halt to that State Department Health Service rule that would prevent the dispensary from being accepted without zoning information. Maricopa County Superior Judge Michael Gordon put the state rule on hold for the White Mountains dispensary, so the state cannot reject the company's application just for not complying with that rule. Now, the county does not dispute that it is, quote, categorically refused to examine whether plaintiff's proposal site meets zoning requirements or if there are such requirements at all. But now that dispensary can go ahead and apply to be considered for that August 7th lottery draw for competitive districts, regardless of the county's reluctance to have them open up shop. They still must be approved, though, by DHS. According to Will Humble, the director for Arizona's DHS, the state is finalizing the review process for 460 applications. Out of the 486 it had originally received, only 3 of those applications so far have been denied. 5 were withdrawn. The other 18 applications are on a temporary hold as the applicants attempt to comply with various rules, such as the one that encourages the dispensary company to have $150,000 in the bank. Several applicants were allowed some extra time to transfer that $150,000 from investment accounts to a bank in order to comply with the state's request that those with the hefty bank account will be favored in the selection process. Now, these numbers will have to be down to just up to 125 businesses. That is the maximum amount of dispensaries that will be allowed in the state by law.
Okay. You lost me somewhere after Arizona, because every time I hear about Arizona, it's always some complex, convoluted, dragging our feet, stonewalling, obstructionist issue going on at the bureaucratic levels to prevent the will of the people. The people, and I know it was a close election, 50.13%, but that's the way democracy works. We won that election. The people want medical marijuana in the state of Arizona. And they voted for a medical marijuana in the state of Arizona that would include dispensaries for people to get safe access to that medical marijuana. Why does this have to be so hard? Obviously, rhetorical question. We know why it has to be so hard. They think all drugs are bad and the federal government bans it and can give you all sorts of mandatory minimums for it. We know the reasons why. But morally, ethically, why does it have to be so difficult? I mean, if you can imagine, we were back in hunter-gatherer days, right? Living in tribes, whatever, roaming across the land, chasing buffalo or whatever. If you can imagine back to those days and someone would be really sick, right? And they needed something that would help them. And maybe the shaman or maybe one of the wise elders would know that, hey, you see that sticky, purpley green, smelly plant over there? Why don't you just pick some of that off of there, rub that a little on your wound or whatever, eat some of it, maybe that'll help you out. How easy it would be, how natural, how expected it would be in our human nature to do that. It would just be part of our instinct to use the plants around us to try to help us out. But now that we're civilized, we can't accept that. We can't accept that we can just go out to the woods, pick a plant, and use it to help ourselves. Like we might break off a frond of aloe vera or grab, some root or something that can help us out. We have to make this so difficult. It has to come down to cancer patients and AIDS patients and MS patients desperately getting on the TVs and trying to guilt people into thinking that it ought to be okay to use a plant for medical purposes or just because it makes you feel good. It really, after doing this for 5-6 years, it just starts to wear on you where you can't imagine that if we had tried to, we couldn't make this more difficult. Because we did. We tried to make it as difficult as possible. And of course, folks, beating a dead horse here, it always comes down to the illogic and absurdity of trying to separate who's healthy enough to put in a cage for marijuana. That's always what this comes down to. So long as using marijuana is forbidden, so long as it's bad and evil, and they need to separate the people who are sick enough from the people who are healthy enough, you're always going to get these absurdities, these crazy twists of logic and twists of the people's will and political shenanigans going on. This is just, I hope I live long enough to see this end. I hope I live long enough to see a time when my nephews and nieces are asking old Uncle Russ what it was like back in the days of Prohibition, where for them it would just be imperceivable that we would do something like this. I really hope I live that long because every story that comes out of Arizona adds some more gray hair to my mustache.
And factors for the measure to legalize cannabis in Montana. have failed to get enough signatures to have that proposed constitutional initiative appear on the November ballot. Montana's Secretary of State Linda McCullough said that they had until last Friday to turn in the needed signatures, and they did not turn in enough. Constitutional Initiative 110 to criminalize the sale, use, and possession of marijuana by adults in Montana had collected around 18,000 of the necessary 48,674 signatures they would have needed. Juliana Crowley, the executive director of NARAL Pro-Choice Montana, said that this is the third time that her group has failed to get enough signatures for a legalization effort, but said that this year it was the state officials who had them change the language of the initiative 3 separate times, which severely shortened the time they had to collect signatures this year. She said that with the amount of volunteers collecting the signatures in the sparsely populated state, they just plain ran out of time. Another of C110's CI supporters, Bob Trego, vows that the group is not giving up, saying that the next time around they will be more prepared since they now have the legal language of the bill all worked out. Now, the other constitutional amendment initiative, an anti-abortion initiative to define life beginning at conception, also failed to make the ballot this year in Montana.
I guess there's a silver lining. All right. Once again, continuing on with the previous rant, why does this have to be so hard? In the states that do have this initiative process, and I can't speak specifically to Montana's laws. I don't know Montana election laws very well. But in a lot of these states where they have the initiative process, it once again seems like they try to put as many hurdles, as many obstacles in front of democracy as they possibly can. When we're talking about corporations wanting to get things passed, they'll grease the rails for the lobbyists. They'll pass Citizens United and let you spend millions and billions of dollars if you're the Koch brothers. But if you're someone like me that just wants to help get a law changed and you want to get the majority of the people in your state to help do it, they make it nigh impossible. Things like having to get, like in Oregon, we have to get 1,000 signatures before you can go get signatures. That's true. You have to go collect 1,000 signatures and turn those in to show that you're serious, and then you can go start collecting more signatures. Now, those 1,000 also count toward your signatures, but still, it's just this weird kind of thing. In other states, they have these rules where either based on the counties or based on the districts, you have to get X percentage of your signatures from X number of counties, right? Like, say you're in a town or a state like Montana, where your population centers are going to be Billings and Bozeman and Helena, right? These major college towns. But the rest of Montana, big, vast, empty starktitude, right? Just bleak and empty and very small towns, right? And they'll set it up so that if you're based in one of these cities where you'd like to get most of your signatures, and you could probably get a majority in the city if you were able to do that, no, they make it that you got to go out to all these rural counties as well and pick up, a certain percentage of your signatures from them. The idea being that everybody in the state gets to pick. But really what it turns out is it makes it so that people living in the small towns, people living in the sticks, people with more conservative viewpoints have a greater say in what's going on in our participatory democracy. So once again, putting these hurdles in front of the people, denying us our democracy, because when they give us our democracy, we do things like, want to legalize weed.
And a New York State man, I don't know if this is a stupid stoner story or crazy stoner story. A New York State man is being charged with dealing marijuana in a rather 21st century way. Suffolk authorities have arrested Michael Bennett of Brooklyn, who had brazenly set up his marijuana selling business on the web. Now, I love this story because of all the marijuana we've seen imported over the years. I can't remember any who had gone through the trouble of setting up business with a business name. Bennett, who's 21 years old, is the owner and online operator of the Suffolk Scentsy Flower Shop. Bennett had set it up so he could take marijuana orders online, and he would accept credit cards or cash for the transactions. He'd personally deliver the product to those that ordered online, and you could even prepay online with your credit card, according to prosecutors. The business also has an associated Facebook page and a Twitter feed to keep followers up to date on menu changes. Bennett was in court today to answer to the charges of third-degree criminal sale of marijuana and 4 counts of fourth-degree criminal sale of marijuana. He is facing 1 to 4 years in prison for his crimes. Now, Bennett is a Marine veteran of the Afghanistan War, was honorably discharged after he was injured in both knees and his shoulder. The district attorney in court this morning, John Scarlato, described to the court a slickly marketed marijuana selling operation where customers would get a free gram if they referred a friend. And even though police were charging Bennett with making up to $1,000 a week, he was still allowed a public attorney. His website was still up this afternoon right before showtime, and his prices are pretty steep, but probably online with East Coast pricing. And hey, I guess you're also paying for the ease of online ordering. An eighth of high-grade marijuana, and the flavor of the week this week was Tangerine Dream. premium, according to the website, goes for $80 an eighth. A quarter goes for a whopping $150. A half for $300, and an ounce goes for $5.50. He was also selling hash, according to his website, for $1 and $6.50 an ounce.
Oh,
it's 420 back in Idaho, where Russ and Carrie were born. So we have to go connect with our Russ. You know what I mean? Please support these sponsors who support the Russ Belville Show.
Thanks, Carrie, for the news. And we're going to take a quick little break, come back with some Electric Tuesday music, Send Dog of Cypress Hill with a remix of Bob Marley. And then Richard Feldman from Independent Firearm Owners of America joins us at 1:30. Stick around. It's the Russ Belville Show. We'll be right back.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. Or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Remember, Mr. President, you once were just one bust away from being Barry the drug criminal.
Life ain't a box of chocolates gum. That's why people smoke weed and take bumps and drink way too damn much and get drunk and do it all over again first of the month.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Electric Tuesday, featuring the latest in electronic dance music and other cutting-edge genres. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, welcome back, everybody. For Electric Tuesday today, we're kind of blending a little Electric Tuesday into Irie Wednesday. You get to be my age, all the days start to blur together. And so we were coming back from the protest. We were all really busy. And I'm like, Brian, you got anything we can throw in here for Electric Tuesday? And he said, will remix be okay? I said, yeah, sure. Remix is fine. So what do we got in this remix? What's this song?
So this is a classic African Herbsman by the late great Bob Marley. And this is remixed on an album that was put out in 2001. And this is called, it's off of Bob Marley Remixed Hits, and I think it's on Big Eye Records, and they had a lot of different people. I think there's 12 tracks on the album, and
remixed all by different
people.
Artists. Okay.
Yeah, actually a couple of them are done by the same people, but they're pretty good remixes. This is one of the better ones, I think. We played it on our radio show, my dad's radio show, back then a couple of times. So
cool.
Just a little bit of electronic mixed in with the old school reggae.
Who's remixing this now?
This is remixed by Send Dog of Cypress Hill. So,
all right.
Right on.
Well, let's get into it. Bob Marley, African Herbsman, Send Dog of Cypress Hill remix on your Electric Tuesday.
Oh,
Oh, of course, Bob Marley with African Herbsman, the Cypress Hill remix by Sendog. Good stuff. You can get this and other music downloads and videos from our website, the Russ Belville Show website at radicalruss.com. Just look for music.radicalruss.com. You can find all of them. Coming up next, we got Richard Feldman from the Independent Firearm Owners of America. He's going to join us. We're going to talk about, well, guns in America and the drug war. So stick around. It's the Russ Belville Show. We'll be right back.
Dear Mom, when I was in college, I used to drink a lot. It was kind of crazy. But now that I'm older, I prefer to use marijuana. It's less harmful to my body, I don't get hungover, and honestly, I feel safer around marijuana users. I hope this makes sense, but if not, let's talk. I love you.
TalkItUpColorado.org. Start your conversation about marijuana, paid for by the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol.
I like it like that.
Well, I don't know what you came to do, but what we came to keep the funk alive.
That's right, baby. We're keeping the funk alive right here at Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Ring. National Cannabis Radio's home of soul, funk, and disco. So join me, Big Daddy, every Tuesday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, at the Funky Roller Ring, where every night is Saturday night.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
The cannabis community includes a diverse set of activists and nonprofits working to end the prohibition of marijuana. We take the time to hear the stories of reform on the Russ Belville Show's Cannabis Community Chat.
All right, welcome everybody to the Cannabis Community Chat. Our guest today is Richard Feldman from the Independent Firearm Owners of America, and we are going to be getting him on the line. He is the author of a book called Ricochet, and it's his explanation of his life and times working with the NRA, the National Rifle Association, where he was a lobbyist for a long time there in Washington, D.C. So he has been a guest on our show before, and we will have him on here just as soon as we can get this technical issue taken care of. So we're going to take a quick little break and we'll be right back.
17 states and the District of Columbia have legalized the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. Over 70% of the American public supports the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. What does Governor Mitt Romney think of medical marijuana?
So medical marijuana is legal in Colorado. One of our viewers, Bill Ferguson, asked, should marijuana be legalized for medical use?
Aren't there issues of significance that you'd like to talk about?
The medicinal use of marijuana is a significant issue to the millions suffering from cancer, AIDS, and other chronic pain, nausea, spasticity, and seizure disorders.
I think marijuana should not be legal in this country. I believe it's a gateway drug to other drug violations. The use of illegal drugs in this country is leading to terrible consequences in places like Mexico and actually in our own country.
Okay.
I oppose legalization of marijuana.
When I was in England, I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it, and didn't inhale, and never tried it again.
I think you'd probably be a lot cooler if you had, Mr. President.
Said, hey, do you have a joint, kids? Sure would be a lot cooler if you did. Lie to don't hide it. Lie to don't hide it. Oh, lie to don't hide it. Lie to don't hide it. Just
All right, welcome back. We are working out the call here. We're trying to get Richard Feldman on the line. Richard, can you hear me by chance?
Hanging on. We're going to put you out.
Sounds like we're getting him there. Richard, are you available now? Hello, Richard.
Oh, good afternoon, Russ.
Hi, Richard. Sorry about the difficulty getting you on the line there. We're having some trouble with our phone connection, but it's great to hear your voice. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very kindly.
Okay, first, for folks that may have not heard you on our show before, you are the president of the Independent Firearm Owners of America and the author of the book Ricochet. Give folks a little idea of what you're doing as far as your activism and how it differs from, well, you know, that other group people might associate with firearms.
Well, in some ways, it doesn't differ at all. Activists, people involved in the political arena have very similar skill sets. If you're any good at what you do, probably the biggest distinction between our group, the IFOA, and all the other gun rights groups around the country, whether they're national or state or local, is that we have taken up the reform call on marijuana laws as well as Second Amendment rights. We believe they're intricately tied together. And when you have situations like this tragedy in Aurora and people, we have to do something. Well, one thing that comes to mind that we could do is cut the amount of police work in half. Instead of arresting people for sale and possession of marijuana, it would certainly free up a lot of law enforcement resources to try and track down the lunatics running around our streets. Mm-hmm. Although, frankly, Russ, in this particular scenario, as I've said in some other reports, this is the hardest and most difficult scenario there is. A deranged lunatic that doesn't have a prior criminal history record, hadn't been involved with the mental health system. There's no law that anyone has proposed absent, let's just stop selling guns to people. Trust the government, not the people. And I think both these issues really come down to issues of freedom and responsibility. Any way we go on both these issues, there will be mistakes made. I would rather err on the side of the people than err on the side of the government.
Okay, so the difference being with independent firearm owners is that you recognize how the drug war has affected our firearm rights and the politics of talking about firearm rights. One way that I can see that this has happened, you know, that's garnered major news attention is in Operation Fast and Furious, the Department of Justice program that was allowing guns to be walked out of law-abiding gun-selling stores, walked across the Mexican border in an attempt to try to trace where they would end up, went horribly awry, and some of the guns ended up, one of the guns ended up being used to kill a border patrol agent. What is the IFOA's stance on this this scandal, on this Fast and Furious?
Well, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms needs some adult leadership to be able to say no to silly, stupid things like this. And if we're going to have the ATF investigating the Mexican drug cartels, perhaps we can free up the DEA to regulate the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms industry in America.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's getting outside of their jurisdictions a little bit here.
Rather completely, I would say.
You know, another way that we've seen firearm rights being attacked in America is with those lawful users of medicinal cannabis in the states that allow medical marijuana use. We had to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. As far as that goes, with medical marijuana in the states, what can we do? What would you like to see done as far as the federal rules regarding the issuing of guns or ammo to those considered to be drug addicts?
Well, the interesting thing is you could be the town drunk. Everyone knows that 30 out of 31 days of the month you are inebriated beyond all recognition of reality. And on that 31st day you can walk into a gun shop and lawfully purchase a gun. But God forbid you have a medical marijuana license and are a user, you're prohibited because it's a Class 1 substance. I mean, the federal government has gotten itself involved in issues way beyond those that it's capable of having an influence, nor should it. The whole idea of 50 states was that states could try different things. One state wants to arrest everybody who looks in the wrong direction. Fine. That's your state. Go ahead and do it. Our state chooses not to. Let's see who ends up spending less money and who has the better, more productive place to live that attracts industry, attracts jobs, and lowers taxes. The federal government seems to be in a mode of saying, we don't really need the 50 states. We'll just write all the laws for everybody. They've gotten way beyond what would have been tolerated even 100 years ago, let alone 200 years ago. And it's time to take our own country back. If we can't learn from the lessons of our own history and the prohibition of alcohol, we really are doomed.
We're speaking with Richard Feldman, the president of the Independent Firearm Owners of America and author of the book Ricochet, Confessions of a Gun Lobbyist. Now, Richard, how long did you spend working for the NRA as a lobbyist?
Well, I was with the NRA in the early 80s and really involved into the 90s. I ran the Firearm Industries Trade Association from 91 to 99.
So you were involved then from 91 to 99. The assault weapons ban was signed by President Clinton in 94, I believe it was, and then allowed to lapse in 2004 under the George W. Bush administration. What is the IFOA's position on that? Would you like to see a return to assault weapons ban or some other legislation to address assault weapons and large capacity magazines? Or
go ahead. There is nothing that the law can do that isn't already illegal. So when you want to ban a particular firearm because of its cosmetic appearance and it looks mean and nasty and ugly, I call that that's really the double secret probation. We can't do anything about it, but we want to make people feel good that we did something. And by God, we're going to ban those guns that have a flash suppressor or guns that have a stock. Last time I checked, what makes a firearm is its ability to fire a projectile at high speed downrange. The issue is never the gun. The issue is and should be in whose hands are the guns. There are not good guns and bad guns. There are people who do use this tool properly, lawfully, to protect themselves, others, for hunting, for sport shooting, and for collecting. When used properly, it can save your life or someone else's. And when used illegally, unlawfully, or negligently, it can severely injure and take lives. So the issue isn't the gun, it's how the gun is used. For the very people who say, oh, no, it would be a terrible thing, it would have been worse if there were several armed citizens inside that movie theater. The question I really like to pose to them is, and I did today to Hubert Williams from one of the police chiefs former Newark police chief. I said, so do you also think it would have been a horrible idea if coincidentally there happened to have been 4 Aurora, Colorado undercover police detectives who just were out seeing this film with their family? That would have been a bad thing if there were 4 police officers with 4 guns in there. Now, who knows? They might not have been able to do a thing. They might have all been killed themselves. All I know is that without the means to protect oneself in a crazy situation like that, you're kind of doomed. Yeah. How much worse could it have been? I mean, if some people would have died and certainly been shot, and if they weren't the first 10, the rest of those folks might have had a chance. I wasn't in that theater. I don't know how it went down or the particulars, of course, but I know that without anyone being able to stop him, no one had a chance.
Well, we do note that Colorado has some of the most lenient firearm laws that we have in America. So anybody, I guess, could have brought their weapon with them to the theater. So is that something we're going to have to start doing now as Americans? Is to have to arm ourselves when we go out?
I don't think people, there's a lot of us that are armed a pretty good deal of the time. But when you're carrying a concealed firearm one of the great advantages of a concealed gun, you don't advertise the fact that you have a gun, because you really have the element of surprise when the bad guys don't realize you're carrying a gun. I have had in my life one or two occasions where I needed the gun. I had the gun. I've never fired the gun in anger at anyone, and the gun proved quite successful in changing the outcome of what was headed towards a very unpleasant situation.
I wonder, though, why do we need to give the criminal... I mean, why do we have to have the element of surprise? Why don't we just wear them, holster style like the Old West, so the criminals can see that we've got guns and they won't bother us in the first place?
Well, if I was carrying a gun openly, and many states allow for open carry, I have kind of two issues with that. Number one, it frightens a lot of people that see somebody carrying a gun. Who are they? Are they a cop? If you're not in uniform, it's a little awkward. But my greater problem with that, certainly where I live in New Hampshire, it's not a completely unusual situation, particularly around hunting season. But I understand people kind of feeling queasy about the whole idea. But the more important reason is because if I were the person carrying the gun openly and there's a criminal who's going to be doing something nasty, I'm the first person going to be shot. I'd shoot at the one I know has the gun. Not knowing who has the gun gives me the element of surprise against the bad guy.
Okay. So as we look at this, the gun violence that we've had as far as these mass shootings, I mean, growing up, I don't recall hearing as many as I hear lately. And, we've had the Fort Hood, and we've had the Virginia Tech, and, Columbine and so forth. It seems, and maybe that's a factor of having more media coverage and 24-hour news cycle, of course. But if this is the case, if the situation we have now is the way that we're going to keep America, it seems to me we just kind of have to get used to the fact that, a theater full of people or a restaurant full of people are going to have to get shot up every now and then for us to have the right to keep and bear arms. So what can we do?
I don't exactly agree with that. I mean, you don't need a gun to cause tremendous mayhem. In fact, the person responsible currently for the largest civilian casualty was 15 years ago in the Bronx, New York. It was called the Happy Land Fire, and if you just do the Google search, there were 87 people killed by a jilted ex-lover who bought a gallon of gasoline and threw it on the steps of an underground nightclub and killed 87 people. He didn't need 6,000 matches. He didn't need 100-round magazines, and he killed a lot more people than were killed in Colorado. If you had chemical weapons, you could kill far greater numbers of people. Oklahoma City. I mean, we face threats across the board. Life has got risks. And, when pushed against this issue, I frequently think back upon something that Benjamin Franklin said, which rings so true to me. Excuse me. He said, somewhat early in his career, they that would give up essential liberty in exchange for a little temporary safety and security deserve neither safety nor security. And we've become accustomed to having, these perfect lives that nothing ever happens. This isn't the 1950s. I mean, I'm all for bring back Where's the Beaver? Leave it to Beaver. That's kind of how so many of us were brought up on those kind of shows of the perfect little American family. And you know what? It wasn't like that then. It was a caricature of life. And if anything, we deal with harsher realities today than we did then. And we're not doing a very good job in this country of facing up to the mounting problems in our society. And instead of just constantly letting them pile up, we don't really act like adults and say, are there some resolutions, and let's move on to the next problem. And I think that's a fault across the board, whether we're talking about the firearm issue or a whole multitude of the drug issue. I mean, we have so many serious problems facing us. It's time to get past the nonsense and start moving forward.
Yeah, I understand, it's a dangerous world and we all face risks, and sometimes those risks are because bad people make them happen, do things like set fire to theaters or, want to poison gas someone on a subway. And one of the bad things that could happen is one of these bad people might get a whole bunch of ammo and a weapon and shoot a bunch of people, and that happens, I guess. So I guess what I'm asking is, you said earlier about the problem being not the gun, but the person whose hands it gets into. What, if anything, can we do to affect that part of the equation, how the gun gets into that guy's hands?
Well, we have to look at the big picture. And the big picture is there are 500,000 guns stolen in this country every year. So when you focus on one area where criminals get guns, and there are three specific issues within the firearm misusage arena: the negligent misusage of guns, the intentional criminal misusage of guns, and the crazy, lunatic misusage of guns. Three sets of issues, somewhat conflicting, and they have three different sets of policy-related concerns and questions in order to deal with them. And frequently people sort of mix and match, and they can't. They're caused from different things. And of the three, the hardest one to address is the deranged individual. Mm-hmm. They're far less predictable, and this is the perfect case in point. There are no laws that are being suggested that, had they been in effect, had they been operational, would have prevented this particular shooter from obtaining firearms and ammunition. People say he bought 6,000 rounds through the internet. Well, okay, so anybody what if he only went into a gun shop and bought 100 rounds? That's how many he fired, I'm told. So what difference did the other 5,900 make? It's the fact that he had 100. So if we go, well, let's limit people to only 500 rounds a week. 500 rounds a week is a good idea. Wouldn't 100 rounds a week be 5 times better an idea? And 50 rounds? I mean, it's kind of the old, how many angels are there on the head of a pin? Once you start debating silly stuff that really isn't related to the problem, it's kind of a food fight. All the groups involved like to have a discussion. I'm just as guilty. I love to have a discussion about this issue. And people sometimes will say, well, what does anybody need that for? I need that. You could make that argument in the drug debate. What does anybody need to smoke a joint for? Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's plenty of different brands of alcohol out there, by God. I mean, and then you'd say, but I choose to do it my way. I'm not hurting anyone. And the vast 99.9% of gun owners, plus, aren't hurting anyone with the guns they own. So a strategy that impacts 100% of gun owners to get at the 1/100th of 1% of the gun owners who are misusing the guns is a strategy doomed to failure right from the get-go.
So I guess what I don't understand, and sometimes I get this way in this debate, is I consider myself a fairly I like the Second Amendment. I like guns. I was raised around guns as a kid. I grew up in rural Idaho with a hunting family, and I like target shooting. And I was in the military as well, and got to shoot M60 machine guns and light anti-tank weapons and throw grenades.
Well, you know that those are true assault weapons.
Oh yeah, they're
and
a lot
that there
of fun.
Isn't a military in the world that would be interested in the type of gun that the shooter had.
Right, exactly. No, I'm with you there. I completely understand that. But I guess what I'm getting at here is I think sometimes it feels to me as if sometimes the argument gets confused between the idea of right versus, that a right doesn't necessarily mean that it's a complete free-for-all. For example, I have a right to drive a car and go across America, but I still have to register the car. I have to be tested on how well I drive the car. Every 8 years in Oregon, I have to renew my license. I have to carry insurance on it to make sure if I hit anyone with it that I can take care of the damages. I mean, couldn't something like that apply to firearms? I mean, we'd still have the right to have firearms. It's just we might have a little bit more control over them.
Well, I think the government might have a lot more control over them, but I don't know of too many criminals, perhaps you do, or lunatics, that would make some sort of serious effort to alert the police that they have guns. And with 500,000 stolen guns in this country, criminals are the ones we want to impact, and they're not the ones who are buying guns today that are registered. They're stealing them. But you do make, I think, a valid point. And but let me temper what you said. That's not completely true. You can put your 10-year-old son behind the wheel of a car lawfully, a car that's unregistered, that you don't have insurance on your own property.
Sure. And so...
And I think that's a reasonable analogy with guns. And I am one of those people, and there's certainly some that... I know there are plenty of people that disagree with me on this, but when you get a concealed carry license, especially as we start talking about national concealed carry, I think it is responsible that people who are going to carry guns outside their home in public, that we have a certain modicum of knowledge that they've gone through some sort of a training program, and that training should include some discussion on the law of the use of deadly force. Police go through quite a bit of training in that area.
I like that I'm hearing that from you, Richard. Thank you so much on that. We're out of time on this segment, but thank you so much for joining us. Richard Feldman, Independent Firearm Owners of America. The book is Ricochet. What's your website, real quick?
It's www.ifoausa.org.
All right. Thanks so much, Richard.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Brought to you by the National Cannabis Coalition.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
So we called it Cover Your Balls with a Bomb.
I'm going to bring you some of the coverage that we had from the Obama protest today. These are a couple of cell phone videos I shot, audio and video. You have to give me a pass on this, but just some scenes from today's protest.
Bank with Obama. Okay, excellent. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. You like one?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nice you guys there.
Thank you very much. So we're here at the Obama protest. Lots of people here for various reasons. We got no war with Iran. I'd rather be breathing. Stop the coal. No coal transit. The wrong view for Longview. No coal, no toxins. In fact, I just interviewed Jill Stein on my show yesterday.
What show's that?
National Cannabis Radio, NCR420.com.
Got signs out here?
Got great signs. Protesters just waiting for the Obama motorcade to come by. No to the drone wars. People waiting for the president to come by. No war on Iran. Then we get to our side, which is a lot of the assault weapons and respect state medical marijuana laws. So, Orba. And assault weapons, or reban assault weapons. So here with Anthony Johnson, the executive director of the National Cannabis Coalition. Quite a diverse set of people here for the protest, huh?
Definitely a nice mix of people, and good to see people out here demanding real change.
Excellent stuff. Get a nice crowd starting to form, and of all the, it seems like the main issues here are coal, assault weapons, and marijuana. So it's looking good. All right, we're going to go back to coverage. We'll see you in a minute. All right, Radical Russ here at the corner of Brandon, Oregon and Portland, Oregon. The convention center is in our background right now. Just around here you can see the people that are getting ready to go to the convention center. We are here protesting along with many other.
All right, we're going to get that video, more of that video for you here in hour 2. Our Toker Talk Radio will also take your calls at 971-533-7111. Thanks for joining us here. Thanks to Richard Feldman from Independent Firearm Owners. We'll take some calls on that subject as well at 971-533-7111. Try to inject some moderation into this debate. So much of the debate on firearm issues gets so polarized, and just want to see where we can kind of find some common ground here in America. Also, the drug questions are always open. Marijuana questions always open in Toker Talk Radio. I hope you join us. For Wiz Khalico and Brian the Red and Cannabis Carry, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry